Welcome to Point channel. So today I will discuss about SpringBoot logging concepts. So in this video I'm going to cover how many logging providers are there. Okay, so I mean what is the difference between those logging providers and SpringBoot, how it works with logback. Okay, and why do we need to use logback? Okay, and similarly Spring Boot with log4j2. Okay, and the benefits of log4j2. Similarly, what is slf4j, the benefits of slf4j, and the usage of lombok annotations for slf4j. So I'm going to cover all these concepts. Okay. Yeah, so now coming to Spring Boot. Spring Boot logging providers. Okay, if you see this diagram. Okay, so um, Spring Boot internally uses, JCL in the sense Jakarta Common Logging Library. Okay, for public APIs, um, it's using logback as its default logging framework with the help of this SLF4J. Okay, so now let me give you a brief background about this logging frameworks. Okay, so as everybody knows, right from the day one, Log4j was the quite popular logging framework. So after that, okay, logback was came into picture. Okay, so logback was also written by the same developer who has written the log4j also. So he thought, okay, let's write one more logging framework which is a successor of this log4j framework to overcome the drawbacks of the old log4j. Okay, so by that way, I mean, logback, came into picture with much better performance compared to log4j, and so many new features have been introduced in logback. Okay, um, so after that, log4j2 came into picture. Okay, so log4j2, has fixed few issues which are exist in both log4j and logback. Okay, and it has come up with new features like asynchronous programming, all those things. Okay, asynchronous way of logging. Sorry. So so this is about log4j2, and we have one more logging mechanism, that is nothing but java.util.logging, which is from JDK. So these are the four most popular one. Okay, normal log4j, logback, log4j2, and java.util.logging. Okay, so out of these four logging providers, okay, except log4j, the remaining three all are implementations of slf4j. Now what is slf4j? Slf4j in the sense simple logging facade for Java. Okay, so what is this in the sense? Okay, it is kind of abstraction. Okay, I mean, it doesn't have any kind of implementation. Now it imposes all the logging providers to make use of a standard way of logging mechanism. Okay, so I mean to say SLF4J with logback, SLF4J with log4j, SLF4J with java.util.logging. So what does it mean? Okay, the abstraction is SLF4J, but the background implementation was logback, or the abstraction was SLF4J, the background implementation was log4j2. So something like that. So if you follow this type of standard implementation, so in your project, whenever you have some loggers, okay, so if you use SLF4J libraries, right? So in future, if you want to switch to some other logging framework, you no need to change single line of code. So that's the beauty of SLF4J. Simply you need to replace the other logging framework, okay, which you are interested. So that's it. So your existing code will work as it is, how it used to work earlier. So that's the beauty of SLF4J, right? So now yeah, so as everyone knows, I mean, these are the logger levels hierarchy. So we have some six logger levels, so trace, okay, which is the lowest log level. After that, debug, okay. So after that, info, next one, error and fatal, okay. So if you want to log, the basic level logger messages, usually we use debug, okay. And somewhat informative logs, in the sense we need to use info, and after that one, okay. If you want to, highlight some error related log statements, then usually we write error log level statements within the catch blocks, okay. So next, logback will come into picture, okay. I will discuss about logback. So we will write some coding, and parallelly we'll learn the concepts, I mean. So this one, so let's jump into the coding part, okay. So here if you see, sometime before I have created a demo project, okay, so to demonstrate this logging concept. So this is a, a sample employee CRUD operations related project, okay, where we can fire employee CRUD operations. So nothing fancy. So we have some employee controller, employee service AMPL, okay, some application dot properties, POM is there, right? So here if you see, we have some starter web data JPA, okay. So it's a normal regular project, nothing fancy. So we have Lombok, okay, dev tools, everything, right? So now you know Spring Boot internally uses logback as its default framework. So sometime before I have already covered what was logback, why it was introduced, right? So now Spring Boot has decided to use logback as its default framework, right? So now if you see, um, now within the logback, okay, I will show you. See, if you see my screen here, base.xml is there, right? So um, here if you see, this is the base.xml, in which it has already some logback related pre-configuration. So pre-configuration in the sense, usually if you see any related, I mean any logging file configuration, we have some appenders, console appenders, file appenders, okay, some logging patterns, okay. So all these some pre-configuration would be there, right? So now we no need to write our own configuration. So Spring Boot, what they have done, okay, so they have come up with some logback pre-configuration. So that's what I'm trying to highlight here. So here if you see, this is the base.xml. So here see, this is from this particular path. Okay, so here if you see, we have all the files. Okay, so here if you see base.xml, so here you see log underscore file. So by default it will write spring.log at temporary location. Okay, and you see it is including some defaults.xml, okay, and it is also including console-appender.xml and file-appender.xml, and it is writing all the log statements with the log level as info. So this is important. So log level as info, that means even though if you write a trace and debug log statements, they will not be written to either console or file. Why? Because the root log level was info. So by default here, as per this configuration. So and we are writing some log statements to both console and file here, right? So and after that, if you see the defaults.xml, what was there here? Okay, so within the defaults.xml, if you see, this is the defaults.xml. Okay, so so here if you see, what is the console log pattern? So when we are writing the log statements within the console, how we are supposed to write? So they have come up with some standard pattern. Okay, so for example, if you see, um, yeah, so year, month, date, okay, some time, okay, and after that, if you see, so these are the different colors, okay, these are the different colors, okay, and after that, here if you see, um, where is that? Um, Yeah, so this is process ID. Okay, so this is process ID. Okay, and this is also some color. Okay, and yeah, magenta, this is also some color. Okay, so um, percentage fee 15 T. Yeah, T in the sense thread name. So and after that some logger in the sense some class, package name and class name, and after that some logger message. So like that they have come up with the standard console log pattern. And similarly, if you see file log pattern also, I mean they have come up with some standard pattern here, more or less a similar configuration. Okay, so here if you see almost the same process ID thread. Okay, loggers. Okay, so here if you see 39, so 39 in the sense so maximum it will allow the 39 characters for that particular package and class name. In case if it exceeds 39 characters, it will wrap each word with the first letter. Okay, so something like that. So here if you see, and after that, so yeah, so these are the standard by default logger levels. Here if you see, for example, something catalina dot startup dot something, so they just mentioned error. Okay, and after that, here if you see some hibernate validator dot internal, they mentioned as one. Okay, similarly spring framework dot boot dot actuate dot endpoint, so they mentioned as one. Okay, so something like that, some standard framework related packages, they have given some standard logger levels. Okay, so and after that if you see what's there in the console hyphen appender dot xml, so this is console hyphen appender, so we have console log pattern and console log char set. Similarly in the file hyphen appender, here if you see, um, so here, so this is important. So when we are writing the log statements to any file, then what happens, so we have some strategic policies. So here, I mean, um, size-based rolling policy, time-based rolling policy, so something like that. So here, if you see size and time-based rolling policy, so that means, so see here, this is 10 MB, 10 MB in the sense, okay, as and when the file size reaches to 10 MB, then immediately it will roll out that particular file, okay, with this particular naming convention. So here if you see pattern some log underscore file with this year month date dot zz. Okay, so and once again second file also will be rolled out once it reaches to 10 MB or something like that. So this is a size based policy, and as and when it reaches to midnight 00, so I mean to say once it finishes its 24 hours of time, then um, so it will roll out one more file, so with the next date, right? So that is time based policy. So here we have combined policy, size and time based rolling policy. So here if you see a total size cap 0. So earlier, when we used to use this log4j, so there we used to have a cap. So for example, maximum of 2 GB or 3 GB. So once we reach to that particular limit, then it will stop writing the log statements, right? So here we don't have any cap here. So and after that, here if you see maximum history in the sense it will maintain only last 7 days log files history only. So that's the meaning of 7 days, right? So um, yeah, so I mean, so like this, if you see, I mean, Spring Boot has come up with its own configuration, predefined configuration in the form of base.xml. Okay, and if you see, it is including defaults.xml and console-appender, file-appender. So this is important. So since it has come up with its pre-configuration, now we no need to write any console appenders, file appenders, nothing. Why? Because already it was included, right, as a predefined configuration. So now straight away happily we can define a logger, and we can write some log statements, and we can see our log statements within the console. That I will show you now. Okay. So here if you see, uh, yeah, for example, so this is employee controller, right? So yeah, so this is how we need to write the logger. So here if you see private static final, okay, so here logger, so logger in the sense, here if you see this is from org.slf4j.logger. However, this logger, it comes from logback and log4j also, but we are supposed to use this logger from the slf4j, as I said sometime before. So it is highly recommended to use the slf4j library, so that in future if you switch to some other logging framework also, you no need to change single line of code. So that's why we have used logger. And similarly logger factory also, if you see somewhere, here see slf4j.logger factory, okay, and dot get logger, and we are supposed to pass this particular class name here, okay. So and after that, okay, we need to write some log statements. So just to minimize the time, okay, I have few log statements, okay. So here if you see, yeah, see, so if you see the log statements, trace, debug, info, warn, and error. So see, I'm just printing the employee's name. Okay, so here if you see some curly braces, so this curly, the value within the curly braces is replaced by this particular value. So that's the meaning of this one. Okay, so here if you see something from employee controller, something like that. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new employee. So this is a post API. So when the flow reaches here, obviously flow goes to service IMPL class here. Okay, so let me write few more log statements here also. So, so here if you see, uh, yeah. So the here if you see, this is also employee service, from employee service. Here also I'm printing some employee's name. Okay, so here log is there, right? So here I think, yeah, I need to write this logger, right? So let me copy this. So let me copy this. Yeah, so we need to define logger. Yeah, so service IMPL. Yeah, so yeah, we are good. So here if you see, we have defined nothing. I mean, we have defined some log statements both in controller and service IMPL. That's it. I haven't done anything. Okay, so here let me show you application.properties also here. So in the application.properties also, we have some data source related properties. Of course, we have some logging related properties. Right now I have commented. Okay, I will discuss in a shortly. Okay, so let me start the server. So meanwhile I will show you. Yeah, so we have some employee table. Okay, here you see we don't have any data. Okay, in the workbench. So yeah, it's starting the server. Yeah, so here if you see, it is writing some log statements. You see, is writing all the log statements, and if you notice, all the log statements, logger level is info. Why? Because just now I already covered, right? So here if you see, this is root log level is info in the base.xml. So that's why here you can see all the log statements with log level as info. Okay, and here is the year, month, date. Okay, so okay, and here if you see, this is the thread name. Okay, restarted main is the thread name, and this is from so and so package. So as I said, if it exceeds that particular threshold characters, it will wrap with the first character, something o means org or something like that. Okay, and after that this is a logger message. Okay, this is logger message or something like that. So yeah, so here if you see, the application is started. Okay, so let me fire one request. Okay, so I just fired. Yeah, see, employee record is created. I will show you in the database also. See, the record is created successfully. Now, obviously, flow reaches to controller and service IMPL. Now, let's see, do we have log statements or not? Okay, so here if you see, um, yeah, so here if you see, so this is a info message. Okay, info message, employee name from employee controller. Okay, so there are three messages from employee controller. Here if you see, info, warn, and error. Okay, from employee controller, and similarly three more log statements, again info, warn, and error from employee service. Right, so what does it mean? So we have some six log statements, right, both in controller and service. So here if you see, here also not six, I guess, five. We have five log statements employee controller, and 5 log statements in employee service MPL. So 5 plus 5, 10 should print, right? But here it's printed only 6. So that means it has ignored the first two, that is trace and debug. So the reason for that one is, as I said, okay, um, so by default it will, it will go to this default configuration base.xml. So here the root log level is info. So that's why it has considered only info and above info log level. So that's why it has printed, info and warn and error for employee controller, and similarly for employee service MPL. I hope it is clear. Okay. So now, um, so now we want to, change this behavior. So I want to print my log statements with debug log level. Okay. For employee controller, and for employee service MPL, I want to print with the trace log level or something like that, and I want to change the logging pattern also. So this pattern also. So how to do all those things in the sense? Okay, the answer for that question is, okay. So see, we can we can add the few logger related properties, okay, within the application.properties to tweak our configuration. Okay. So if you don't write anything, obviously it will depend on the default configuration. So if you tweak, then it will start consider your configuration. So here if you see, um, so I'm just uncommenting now. Okay. So for example, level. So I just mentioned so and so package and so and so controller, employee controller. So here I'm interested the debug log level. Okay. And here you see I'm just uncommented this one also. So console pattern. So here if you see, okay, yeah. So year month is 03. Okay. So two digits. So here I'm just changing that particular month to MMM. Okay, so three letters it will print. Okay, and if you see, first it will print date and then month and then year. Okay, so like that I'm just changed. Okay, so this is thread. Okay, so everything is fine. So here also logger. Okay, my threshold value for that logger, that class name is 36 characters. Okay, so for example, if I define like this, okay, let me save this value. Okay, so then, yeah. So I have added SpringBoot DevTools dependency. So it will detect my changes automatically. See, it's restarting the server. So if you notice here, okay, so immediately it has changed my the date pattern. You see, first date, then followed by month, then followed by year. Here you see the month is having first three characters. March in the sense MAR. Okay, so here this is the thread. Okay, so that means it is simply following my console log pattern instead of relying on the default configuration. So so now I have defined debug, right? So it is supposed to print the debug statements, right? So let me hit one more request. So I'm just hitting one more request. See, it has created a record. Okay, let's come here. Okay, so here if you see, so now this time, see, this is a debug message, debug info warn and error. So now I have mentioned this debug to only controller right here. I have clearly given only controller. So that's why for the controller, it has printed the logger messages from debug info warn and error. Whereas for service, you know service, I didn't mention anything, so obviously it will consider the root log level. So that root log level is, as I mentioned, so info, right? So that's why it has printed only info warn and error for the service. Okay, so I hope it is clear, right? So in a similar way here, now we have successfully printed the log messages to console. So can we print the log messages to file also? So yes, we can print the log statements even to file also. So let me uncomment this one. Okay, so here if you see, so what I mentioned here, the log statements within the employee service MPL, I want to write those log statements to file only from employee service MPL, that too with the trace log level. Okay, so here if you see, let me uncomment. So what is my log file name? So I'm expecting the log file name is with some example.log, that too within the logs folder. So logs directory within that example.log. Okay. And what is the logger pattern in the sense? So this is the logger pattern I'm expecting. So logger pattern in the sense, normal D in the sense the default date pattern. Okay. So for example, let me say this. My DevTools will automatically detect these changes. So this time, if you see the last three statements, it will print within the file, not within the console. Why? Because the log statements from employee service MPL, I'm going to write to the file. Only employee controller log statements I'm writing to console, right? So here, yeah. So yeah. So here, if you see, yeah, it has printed with this console log pattern, as I said sometime before. Okay, so let me hit one request. Yeah, so record is created. So here, if you see, uh, yeah. So so here, if you see, debug info warn and error. Okay, from employee controller. Okay, and after that, trace trace debug info warn and error. Okay, so it is writing to console also, right? Employee service IMPL from console also. Okay, so here com dot employee service IMPL uh, trace. Okay, logging dot file dot name. Okay, yeah. I'll tell one second. So here, let me see. Yeah. So here, if you see example dot log. Okay, so within the example dot log. Okay, so log means, so this is our log file. Okay, so here, so here also it is printing debug info warn and error, and after that trace debug info warn and error messages, right, from employee service. So yeah, um, employee service IMPL. Okay, so let me see once. Okay, yeah, we don't have anything. Okay, we have application properties. So in the application dot properties, we are writing to trace. Okay, so mm, yeah, so here what would be the reason in the sense? Okay, um, employee controller debug. Okay, by default. Okay. Mhm. Huh. See, so what happens? See here we have some root log level is there, right? Root log level info, and we are writing to both console and file, right? Here both console and file. So now here I have given my own file instead of following the default configuration file. Okay, spring.log. So I have given my own file. So what is my own file name? If you see, so my own file name is example.log. So that's why it started printing to example.log. Okay, so it has considered uh, this particular trace. Okay, what is the trace in the sense? I mean trace log level. So what I'm trying to say here is, okay, here nowhere I mentioned that, okay, employee service IMPL related log statements are supposed to print only to file. I didn't mention anywhere, right? So I mean to say, see, in this particular property name, what I mentioned, simply logging dot label dot so and so package and so and so class name, right? So I mean, so there is nowhere specified that this is to be written to only file, right? So I mean to say, we can say, uh, we are interested so and so log level for so and so class or so and so package. That's it. So I mean, by default it will write the log statements to both console and file. Okay, so if you don't specify your own log file name, by default it will write the log statements to somewhere in the temporary directory with spring.log. Whereas if you specify your own log file name, so it will write the log statements to this particular log file name. okay, example.log within the log. So that's what it has done, you know. So it has written the log statements with the so and so logger level. So for employee controller, it has considered the logger level as debug. For employee service sample, it has considered the logger level as trace. So that's why it has printed the log statements to both console and file. Okay, so this time it has printed successfully to console. Now it has started printing your log statements, both log statements, to example.log instead of this is spring.log. So I hope you guys understand, right? So this is so like this, you know, we can tweak the default configuration with our with our requirement. Okay, so here if you see, this is application.properties. Okay, like this you can tweak any small configuration also. You know, Spring Boot has given n number of different properties to fine tune your default configuration, right? So even we can change this so for example, we can change anything here. For example, here if you see, um, yeah. So here if you see, I can change this maximum history value from 7 days to 10 days. Even I can change the maximum file size from 10 MB to 15 MB. So like that, I can change any configuration with the right property, with some right property within this application.properties, right? So now now we are able to achieve our own requirement by writing some right properties within the application properties. So instead of corrupting your application properties with all your logging related properties, so in the real time, if your project size is a bit moderate or big project, okay, then it is highly recommended to keep all your logging related configuration within a separate file that is known as logback.xml. Okay, so then we can shift all this logging mechanism to logback.xml, so you know so there, you can define some advanced configuration, whatever you want. You can write some complex logging configuration, everything we can do. Okay, for simple for simple requirements, okay, it is enough to keep your logging requirements within the application properties. Okay, so now I'm going to create one you know new file with the name logback.xml. So here if you say logback.xml. Okay, so yeah, so we are supposed to create this one in the src main resources, so that whenever we start the server, Spring Boot automatically detect your logback.xml. Why? Because it is available in your class path, right? So now here there are two ways of writing logback.xml, right? So since Spring Boot has come up with so much of pre-configuration, okay, you can include that base.xml within your logback.xml, so that you can inherit all the pre-configuration, and you can tweak any particular requirement, okay, in your logback.xml, so that it will override that particular property with your configuration, and rest of the everything it will consider the default configuration, something like that. So for that, okay, let me so I have a few, yeah. So here if you see, yeah, so just to minimize the time, I mean, I have this particular logback.xml, okay, already. So here if you see, I just included this base.xml, so I already covered, right? So this base.xml, it has internally included this defaults.xml, console appender, file appender, everything is there, right? So simply what I have done, I mean, so here where is my logback? Yeah, so simply yeah, so here if you see, I just included this base.xml. So that's it. I mean, with if you include this particular single line base.xml, so that means, I mean, you have you have included all the predefined default logback configuration within your own logback.xml. Okay, so you know if we define logback.xml within the class path under src main resources, then Spring Boot will go through the configuration, okay, within your logback.xml instead of going through the default base.xml. So that's why, then when Spring starts go through this particular configuration one by one, okay, so we have included the default configuration, right? And after that, I am interested, these two logger levels. For employee controller, I am interested for error. Okay, for employee service sample, also I am interested only for error. Okay, so here if you see, okay, employee controller I want to write to console, so this is important. Employee service IMPL also I want to employee service IMPL related log statements I want to write to file. Okay, this one was not possible in the case of application properties, so here what I mentioned, okay, I just mentioned the logger level, that's it, but I didn't specify anywhere, okay, employee controller logger statements only need to be written to console, and employee service IMPL related log statements need to be written to a file. So I didn't specify that particular instructions here, right? But now that is possible with logback.xml. Here you can see clearly. So logger inside that, so this is my employee controller, my log level is error. Okay, I am interested to write this particular log statements to console. Similarly here, employee service mpl log level is error, I want to write this employee service mpl log statements to file, right? So now, okay, so here, okay, I'm just saving this. Okay, so let me uncomment. Sorry, let me comment this so that you will see the clear change. Okay, yeah. So yeah, yeah. So I just commented this one. So then what happens? Okay, it will go through these instructions which are available in logback.xml, right? So let me see this status. So whether it is started or not. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I hope it is started. Okay, let me file a request. Oh, let me. Okay, sorry, it's taking a while. Okay. So yeah, I'm hitting. Yeah, record is created. So here, if you see, observe now, see, it has printed only one error message, right? This is the error message, employee from employee controller. So that's what we are expecting, right? See, employee controller related log statements. I am interested to write to only console. So here in the console, we have seen only employee controller related log statements. Now in the employee service IMPL log statement, should be available within the external log file, that is example.log, right? So here if you see the last log statements, okay, see here, this is error message, okay, employee from employee service, right? So that means employee service IMPL related log statements is printed within the file, and employee controller related log statement is printed within the console. So now our purpose is resolved, right? So here if you see, that's what we have written, right? See, that's what we have written, right? So this is the benefit of writing logback.xml. So that means I am completely dependent on the default configuration. So by including the base.xml. So, and in addition to that, I have defined my own logger levels for my classes, whatever defined within my project, right? So this is one thing. Okay, and for example, in case if you don't want to relay the default configuration which comes with the Spring Boot logback, okay, even if you want to override each and every property, okay, even that is also possible. So for that, so here, yeah, so here, one second, I guess. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, so here, okay, let me, Yeah. So this is also logback.xml. So here also if you see, so now in this case, what I'm doing, instead of depending the default configuration, okay, which comes with the Spring Boot logback, okay. So now I don't want to depend on this base.xml, okay, console hyphen appender, nothing. I have my own configuration, right? So here if you see, I have my own console appender, I have my own console log pattern here, for example, you see. Similarly, I have my own rolling file appender, okay. So here if you see, I have my own file pattern. I mean to say logging pattern when I am writing to file. Okay, here you see I have my own rolling policy, size and time based rolling policy. So here if you see this is 1 MB. Okay, maximum history 30. Okay, so that means I want to maintain 30 days. Okay, here earlier I told you right. Here we are maintaining by default only for 7 days. Okay, now I am maintaining for 30 days. Okay, similarly, uh, yeah, so total size cap limit is some 10 MB. Each file size is 1 MB and total file size is 10 MB, something like that. Okay, and here clear history and startup true. So whenever I start the server, I want to remove all the archived files. Okay, so I want I want fresh archived files. So it will delete the existing archived files. That's what the meaning of clear history. Okay, and the same logger levels, whatever I mentioned just now. Okay, same error. So I am writing both console and file. Okay, so here if you see this is my own so by this way we can write our own logging configuration instead of depending on the default configuration, right? So here if you see, I guess server is started. I hope so. So let me fire a request. Yeah, so record is created. So here if you see, yeah, see now also it has printed this is error message. Okay, so this is error message. Okay, so here if you see now, if you see the date, okay, now this date is following my console log pattern. Here, if you see, this is my console log pattern, right? So earlier, if you see, it used to print month as MEA or something like that, right? Now it started considering this console log pattern, right? Similarly, if I see example.log also, okay, so here example.log, okay, um, okay. So here shutdown initiated. Okay, 1 second. So let me complete initialization. Yeah, see here if you see this is error message employee name from the employer. Okay, it's printed here. This is error message. But after that shutdown initiated, I think it was printed. I mean, so this was related to previous iteration, I guess. 1 second. So let me clear this. Okay, even let me clear this. So let me save this. Okay, so let me hit once again. Okay, so just to see our changes freshly. See here it has printed. This is error message. This is clear. Okay, now if we go to example.log. Okay, so here it has not printed, right? So why it has not printed in the sense? Okay, so let's debug why it has not printed. So if we go here logback.xml, okay, so here if you see what is my log file name. So my log file name is, okay, file name pattern. Okay, so this is not example.log, right? So it has defined my app. Okay, so that's why it was not printed to example.log. So I'm not sure. Okay, let me search. Do we have my app? Okay, yeah, see my app.log is there, so it has printed successfully. So here if you see, yeah, see here you can see clearly this is error message. See, error message, this was related to previous iteration and this is related to the current iteration, right? I mean, whatever we tested, right? So this is about logback. So now I have shown all the flavors, okay, how to write, our own logback configuration and how to depend on the predefined configuration, right? So now if we just correlate our PPT, okay. So here if you see, yeah. So here if you see, these are the very important key points. Okay, so this is the logback is the logging framework that was used for the Java application. So as I said sometime before, this is a successor for the log4j. Okay, this is very important and popular Java logging framework. Okay, and as compared to log4j, it has improved the much better performance, and it used to take very less memory also. For you can see a smaller memory footprint. Okay, and similarly, um, yes, since logback has a SLF4j implementation, see, it implements the SLF4j. By that way, happily you can switch to some other logging framework in future whenever you want without changing the single line of code. So yeah, so this is the default logging framework for Spring Boot. Okay, and similarly here if you see, logback has support of SLF4j, so this is fine default configuration. Yeah, and we can also write some conditional configuration also within the logback.xml. You can write some if tags and when tags are also there. So if so and so condition is meeting, okay, then do so and so or something like that. So that is also possible. Okay, and similarly, yeah, it contains the capabilities of advanced filtering. Okay, it will also support the maximum archived files. Okay, so yeah, in when we are using the old log4j, there was a limitation to use a maximum cap for the archived files. So here we don't have a cap here. Okay, um, and similarly here if you see logging of HTTP access, all those things, and it implements the logback in our project by defining the starter logging dependency. Yeah, so now, yeah, I want to cover this important point. So here if you see, yeah, so this is my dependency tree. So I am using Springboot starter web, right? Now this starter web is having a transient dependency of starter, Spring Boot starter. So for example, if you are writing some standalone application which is not a web application, so then you will have straight away Spring Boot starter. Okay, right? Now that starter internally is having starter logging. So this is important, starter logging. Okay, so that starter logging, if you see, that is coming with logback hyphen classic. So that classic internally is having logback hyphen core and as well as SLF4j. So that's why we no need to add any dependency for logback and as well as SLF4j. Why? Because logback comes with logback hyphen classic. Okay, so that was part of starter logging. So starter logging was part of starter. Okay, so that's why we no need to do no need to add anything. Okay, and as I said sometime before, Spring Boot internally uses JCL, right? Jakarta Common Library. So that one here, if you see, uh, from Spring Boot 2.x version onwards, we no need to add any Jakarta Commons library. So here, if you see, Spring-core module, okay, that particular library internally has a JCL transit dependency. So we no need to add any kind of JCL dependency. So that's what I want to mention here. Okay, and after that, okay, so to implement the web application using the logback, we need only the starter web dependency depending on the login starter. Yeah, moving down automatically and add starter dependency. We do not add any again files. Okay, yeah. So this is about logback. Okay, yeah, and one important point here is, okay. So here, if you see, this is, yeah, Spring Boot is logback. Okay, starter logging comes with logback hyphen classic. This is what I said just now. Okay, in addition, Spring Boot provides us uh, what is this, two pre-configured appenders through, yeah, so yeah, this is what I already covered, right? So I mean base.xml console appender, so that's what I just mentioned here. This one already I covered. So in the base.xml already the default log level was info, right? So yeah, one more important point is, so you can write your logback XML with logback.xml or logback-spring.xml. Now, what Spring is saying is it is highly recommended to give your logback naming convention as logback-spring.xml instead of only spring.xml. Okay. sorry, instead of plain logback.xml. Okay, so why we need to give our file name as logback-spring.xml, so if you give something like that, okay, in addition to the logging configuration, whatever we have written just now, okay, till now, so it will also support this profiling mechanism. So in real time we have some dev environment, QA environment, production environment, right? So for each environment we have our own logging levels, right? Obviously in production we will keep error log level, right? Otherwise you are you have some n number of verbose logging, right? So now there are two options. Either you can define logging levels in each and every environment property file in real time, or you can define all your environments within your logback-spring.xml. Why? Because logback-spring.xml supports a profiling mechanism with the element spring-profile. Okay, so that's the beauty of logback-spring.xml. Okay, and one more point is, if we define this property, this logging file configuration both in application.properties and as well as logback.xml, so then it will consider the values from the application.properties. Okay, so that is also important. Okay, so this is what just now I covered. Spring profile is the element which comes in the logback-spring.xml. So by that way we can have logger levels for each profile or each environment within the single logback-spring.xml. So that is the beauty of logback. So yeah. So after that, log4j2. So what is this log4j2? In the sense I already covered. So log4j2 has even much more advanced than logback. Even it has fixed so many issues which are exist in both log4j and logback. Okay. So in order to make use of this log4j2, okay, Spring Boot has given one more starter for log4j2, that is nothing but Spring Boot hyphen starter hyphen log4j2. So now what we need to do here, okay, so first of all we need to exclude the logback dependency. So here if you see, we need to exclude that logback dependency. So how we will exclude that? Logback is from a starter logging, right? So that we need to exclude that starter logging. So we need to exclude something like this. So here if you see, let me stop the server. Why? Because I'm going to touch POM, right? So here if you see, this is my POM. So here yeah, so that starter logging in was a transient dependency for the Spring Boot starter web, right? So we need to exclude here. So something like this. So you can recollect the dependency tree also. Yeah, so here if you see, um, where is it? Yeah, so here you can see starter logging. Here you can see, so the starter logging is from starter web, right? So that's why I just excluded the starter logging. So by that way it will exclude the logback hyphen classic, right? So then once it excludes, then now we are good to add this new dependency, that is nothing but Spring Boot starter log4j2. Here you can see we can happily add this one. So here see, I just added something like this. See, and after that what we need to do now, I'm just removing this logback.xml. Okay, I'm just removing this. Now I'm going to add the new file, that is log4j2.xml. Okay, so here this is log4j2.xml. Okay, so here I have some predefined configuration. So here if you see, yeah, so I just added here. Okay, so so sometime before we have seen logback configuration, right? So now this time this is a log4j2 configuration. So here also if you see console, so here system underscore out. Okay, this is kind of target. I mean, obviously it will be slightly different, right, from logback. So this is a log4j2 configuration. Now here we have we have console log file pattern. Okay, similarly here also if you see, um, so here if you see, I am interested to write my log statements to log4j to example.log under logs, right? So this is my whenever I roll the file, so just follow this naming convention, something something dot underscore dot log dot gz. Okay, and after that, here if you see, this is a kind of pattern. Okay, while writing the log statements to file, this is the pattern. Okay, and here if you see, so it is following size based triggering policy. So earlier, if you remember, I mean, we followed size and time based rolling policy when we use logback. Now here size based triggering policy with the size of 10 MB. So once the file reaches to 10 MB, it will roll out a file, new file or something like that. Okay. So yeah, it is writing to both console and rolling file. Okay. So here, as usual, we have our two log files. Okay. Logger levels, employee controller and employee service MPL. Obviously, both are error and error, right? So now let me start the server. Okay. Let me start the server. So this time, it will write the log statements to console and as well as file. Okay, so for console, it should consider the log statements from employee controller, that too with the logger level as error. Okay, and for file, it should write the log statements from employee service MPL, that too with error log level, right? So now my log file name is log4j2 example.log. Okay. So earlier we have given a name as only example.log, right? So now here if you see, it has I mean it's printing now these all these log statements are due to our log4j2. Okay, so let me hit one sample request. Okay. Yeah, see, record is created. Now if you see, um, yeah, so here if you see, this is error message. Okay, employee name from employee controller, as I said. Okay, so yeah, we have given, see, for console I have given only employee controller, right, with error log level. So that's why it has printed only error message. Now let me search for log4j2 example.log. Okay, here if you see, yeah, so here you can see log4j2 example.log. Okay, so just now it's printed. Okay, so here also if you see, this is error message from employee service, right? See, error message, employee name from employee service. So it's working fine. So that means, so I mean it's considering the log statements from our log4j2.xml, okay, which is available within the src main resources. So here you can see. So yeah, so like this, I mean, we can make use of log4j2 also. So just I have excluded the starter logging. So just to avoid the default logback framework. So I just included log4j2, Springboot starter log4j2, and I just added log4j2.xml. Now it has started considering my log4j2.xml. Okay, now let's come back to PPT. Okay, so here if you see, Spring Boot supports log4j2 for logging configuration. It's in the if it is on the class path. Okay, so whatever you keep in the class path, so immediately it will go through that configuration, right? So here if you see whatever I have done, I just mentioned here. Okay, so yeah, you can have either log4j2.xml or log4j2.ml or JSON. So anything you can have. Okay. So log4j2 also supports advanced filtering options, and the main advantage of log4j2 is asynchronous way of logging. What is asynchronous way of logging? In the sense, it will improve your performance much better. Why? Because it will execute the input and output operations in a brand new thread. So that's the way of asynchronous way of logging. So by that way it will improve the performance like anything. Okay, and it will also provides the garbage free mode. Okay, so that your regular garbaging operations will not slow down your operation. Okay, so here also you can see this is the performance chart. Okay, so here if you see the lengthy vertical bar, okay, if you follow all async way of mechanism for appenders for everything, so then this is the highest performance. Okay, so now it's up to you. Okay, it's based on your project requirement. If your project uses logback, so that is also fine. Or if you want to use log4j2 also, just you need to include Spring Boot starter log4j2 instead of logback. You just need to exclude the logback, right? Yeah, so this is what I just want to share logging concepts. So I hope I covered all the concepts end to end. Okay, so if you really like my video, please like and share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.